English football in the 1960s was a strong era for great managers. The likes of Matt Busby, Revie, Bill Shankly, Alf Ramsey, Bill Nicholson and Harry Catterick all won league titles that decade. But at the tail end of it, on the blue side of Manchester, was a man who would sweep up the honours but sadly over time would be lost amongst the name of his contemporaries. Joe Mercer made his name at Aston Villa, saving them after they encountered tough times, and he also took Manchester City to the top of English football at a time where their red neighbours had been the talk of the footballing world. This is the story of Joe Mercer and the rise of the Blue Moon. Joe Mercer was born in Ellesmere Port, Cheshire, on the 9th of August 1914. His father, Joe Sr., was also a footballer and passed away from after effects of a gas attack during the First World War when his son was only 12. Mercer was at school alongside future legendary Wolves manager Stan Cullis and played alongside him for their schoolboy team. Mercer played as a left half and signed for the academy of Ellesmere Port Town before signing for Everton at 18 years old, for a period playing alongside the legendary Dixie Dean. He was at Everton for 14 years, but many of these were lost to the war. He won the last First Division title before the Second World War in 1939, but continued playing in wartime matches. After the war, he signed for Arsenal and quickly became club captain. He began to craft his leadership skills by helping them to a top-flight title in 1948. 2 years later, he won the FA Cup, also adding the Football Writers Association Football of the Year to his tally. He won the league again in 1953, retiring 2 years later after suffering from a broken leg. He had become a hero to both Highbury and Goodison, and now it was time to become a hero on the touchline. He did initially step away from football, continuing working for the grocery business he had started whilst at Arsenal, and also spent time as a journalist. But Sheffield United manager Reg Freeman passed away in the summer, and Joe Mercer was appointed as his replacement. It didn't go well though, with the Blades getting relegated. He resigned from the role in 1958 and moved to Aston Villa. The club had won the FA Cup the previous year, ending a lengthy trophy drought. However, Mercer experienced relegation with the club. He would this time though turn it around. He built a side of young players who would be commonly nicknamed Mercer's Miners and won the Second Division in 1960. The next year, he won the first cup of his career, and was in fact the first ever manager to lift the League Cup, with Aston Villa coming from 2-0 down to defeat Rotherham United 3-2 on aggregate to win the inaugural edition of the competition. Mercer kept Villa in the top flight, but experienced misfortune in 1964 when he suffered a stroke. Upon his recovery, he was sacked by the Aston Villa board. It was a huge setback in his young managerial career, but he was about to take the job that would make him. Mercer returned to the Second Division, taking over at Manchester City in the summer of 65. Due to his health issues, he wanted an assistant to help him out and take the pressure off, and he went for the young Malcolm Allison. The pair worked together as a good cop, bad cop duo. Mercer was well respected and seen as a gentle father figure, whereas Allison was charismatic, flamboyant, and knew how to get the best out of his players. Allison had focus on diets and physiotherapy and tried to ban goalkeepers picking up back passes, saying it was a cowardly tactic. The pair would go on to be an iconic duo, with them hitting the ground running by winning the Second Division. They brought in the likes of Mike Summerby, Colin Bell, and Franny Lee, a trio who now have a statue outside Manchester City's ground. They would join the likes of Neil Young, Glyn Pardo, and Tony Book. They finished solidly in the top flight, but the next campaign would be one of their greatest moments. Whilst not initially starting well, they would go on to win 5 consecutive games, and by December were considered title contenders after impressing in a 4-1 win over Tottenham on the TV. They continued challenging and defeated Busby's Red Devils in March at Old Trafford. With only a few games left, Manchester City, Manchester United, Leeds United and Liverpool were all in contention. On the final day, Manchester City defeated Newcastle by 4-3, and in doing so, pits Manchester United, who many felt had one eye on their upcoming European Cup final against Benfica, to the title. It was their first top-flight title since 1937, and was truly a remarkable feat for a club who had been in second tier just 2 years before. The trophies would not stop there though. In 1969, a goal from Neil Young at Wembley saw Manchester City defeat Leicester City in the FA Cup final, with Joe Mercer becoming the first person to win the FA Cup in First Division as both a player and a manager. At full-time, the ever-gentlemanly Mercer's first act was to go and shake hands with the Leicester captain, David Nish. The next year, they won their first League Cup by defeating West Brom, and they also experienced a continental adventure. Manchester City were in the European Cup Winners' Cup, with Allison keen to make a statement in Europe, branding many of the European coaches as cowards. Manchester City defeated Athletic Bilbao the AFC, Academia and Schalke 04 to reach the final, and he faced Polish outfit Górnik Zabrze in Vienna. Amongst the pouring rain, something that Mercer said ruined the second half, Manchester City won 2-1 to win their first European trophy. In the space of 5 years, Mercer had won 2 league titles, 2 domestic cups and a continental trophy, and going against some of the greatest managers in English footballing history. Sadly, that night in Vienna was his swan song. A dispute would emerge between Mercer and Allison. Manchester City were on the verge of a takeover led by Peter Swales, who had Allison's backing as he promised him the position of manager. Meanwhile, Mercer was on good terms with the current board, led by Albert Alexander. Swales took over, and Mercer turned up to training to discover his parking space and office were removed, and he was moved upstairs as general manager. Mercer would leave City as a result in 1971, but was keen to insist he felt no animosity and desired to move on. He would then spend time as manager of Coventry, and this coincided with him being caretaker manager after Alf Ramsey left England. He guided England to a shared home nations championship with Scotland and was considered for the job, but would miss out to someone else heavily associated with Manchester City in Don Revie. He would never manage again and spent time as a director at Coventry. He suffered with Alzheimer's in his later life and passed away in 1990 on his 76th birthday. He is honoured with his mosaic on Joe Mercer Way, looking out to the Etihad Stadium. Joe Mercer truly worked miracles with the Sky Blues, working on the shoestring years before the millions of Sheikh Mansour to take over a club in the second division, and over the next few years, when every domestic honour ahead of you, especially when competing against the likes of Revie, Shankly and Busby, is nothing short of miraculous. Not just as a player, but as a manager too, he had a habit of winning trophies, and is perhaps the most underappreciated manager in the history of English football. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video on the AFC Finners channel. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please have a look at the channel down below and check out the hundreds of videos available. If you'd like to support the channel on Patreon, you can do so in the link below for as little as £1 a month. Please let me know what you thought of this video and what topic you'd like me to cover next. See you next time.